Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and sports fans of all ages, and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk on Channel 10, The View. I'm your host, Jack Bonaparte, and tonight you are in for a treat because we have a legend of the NHL, the WHA, just about every league you can play in the sport of hockey. He's been there and he's coached there as well. We've got John Jr. Hanna, who I've had the pleasure to do play-by-play commentary with quite a few times with the Screaming Eagles, but this is the first time we've had a sit-down chat and just to talk about hockey in general. Thanks for being on the show, John.
You're more than welcome, Jack, and it's always a pleasure. I really enjoy doing the color commentating, and the only problem with a show like this for me is it gets back to just how old I really am.
We won't set a specific number on it, but you've played for quite a few years, and I mentioned all kinds of different leagues. Let's go back to the early days with Chicoutimi, and that's really where you really got going in your hockey career.
Yes, my hockey career really started in Montreal with the Montreal Canadiens, and they had sent me to Chicoutimi. I signed my pro contract in Chicoutimi. And I spent a couple of years in Chicoutimi, and then after that, the New York Rangers drafted me. And then I started the season in Providence, and then with guys like Eddie Shack and Teddy Hampson, and Teddy was here scouting last year, and got to say hello to him. And then from there, they sent me, I got that Asiatic flu, they sent me to Three Rivers. So the following year, I ended up going to New York, and I spent 4 years with the New York Rangers.
Now, of course, you're a young man at this time, John. How tough is that to be bounced around from city to city, really to get going and ultimately live your dream and to play in the NHL? Is that tough on a young guy, or are you one of those guys who like going from city to city?
Well, I'll tell you, I didn't get bounced too often, although I played many years. I played 19 years pro, and I coached 5 pro teams. But I didn't get bounced too often. I went to New York. I was there 4 years. Then New York sent me to Montreal, where I was in that Fontanato trade and Doug Harvey trade and Jacques Plante that went over in that era, that time. And then Montreal, after a while, a stint with Montreal, they sent me to Quebec, and I spent 7 years with Quebec Aces. And then from there, Philadelphia Flyers bought the rights to Quebec, and that's how I became an original Flyer in 67, 68. But as far as the toughness was, I would do anything to play hockey. And I'll tell you now, and maybe it's a nice message for the young kids that are out here, I played the game because I loved it. I played it because I wanted it. And I wanted to play hockey, and I didn't want. I would have played for nothing. And when I read about all the millions of dollars that are going around today, it's too bad I wasn't 20 years younger. But you know what? I don't think I'd want to change anything. I enjoyed the game of hockey. I loved it. I loved playing in the challenge. I loved being competitive. And even at my age, with a bad leg and everything, I'm still very competitive. If I'm playing cards, I'm competitive. If I'm on the golf course with a half a swing,
Extremely
I'm competitive
on the golf course.
Extremely competitive. Nobody can tell but inside if they only knew, you know.
For sure. Now, John, you mentioned what it would be like playing now. Obviously, the money is a huge difference. It's really, I would think, disheartening for you to sit down and watch a player like Doug Weight sit out and hold out on his team because he's not getting the $4 million he wants for this season. How tough is it to know you did the same thing a few years earlier and didn't even compare money-wise? Is that tough to watch these guys sit out for millions and millions of dollars?
Yes, it is. It's very difficult. And I'll tell you what really bothers me is a guy like Shane Corson, Pavel Bure. Shane Corson's already under contract. He was the reason, in my opinion, that George Burnett got fired from Edmonton because he took the sea off his sweater without permission from upstairs, right? They don't want to admit those things. And then you got Pavel Bure making over $7 million a year. He's got personal reasons why he doesn't want to play. Well, I got 7 million reasons why I'd want to play in Vancouver.
Certainly.
But see, money makes these guys into monsters. They have so much money, they can afford to sit out for the year. And I think that's the part of the game that's really bothersome today, is the money. But don't get me wrong, I think we definitely deserve more money. We were underpaid, we were mistreated. Alan Eagleson proved that.
We'll talk about him a little later.
Pension plan and all those other things. But I think money is ruining the game. And I see it in the juniors. I watch these kids, a lot of these kids. Money are spoiling them. Le Cavalier, for my opinion, should have been drafted fine. Paid a signing bonus, yes, but he should be in junior until he's 20 years of age. And Tanguay probably doesn't realize it now in Halifax, but when he finally gets signed, he's going to be of age, and he'll probably be a much better hockey player. I think they're destroying a lot of the younger players. They're destroying the junior league by taking these guys too soon. As a result, they destroy the AAA midgets who are dipping into the Bantams, and it's just a snowball effect. It just keeps coming down. And that's what I don't like about the money end of it. And some of these kids are very difficult to handle. They feel they're drafted. They feel they should start at the top and work down. Well, if any of them are listening out there today, I think they better put a good, strong foundation in. Spend as many years as you can in junior or minor pro. And then when you get out, like the Chris Chilios has come out of university at the age of 24, he's never left the National Hockey League. So that's just a little point that I would like to bring out for the younger hockey players.
You make a really good point, too, when you mentioned Vincent LeCavalier, of course, 18 years old, playing with Tampa Bay, first-line center, and paying multi-million dollars. Really, to me, he would be better off in the CHL. And to me, that's a slap in the face to the Canadian development system, because he can develop his skills in the Canadian Hockey League. And of course, he's only going to get better when he does go up with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And there's many players, not to pick on Vincent LeCavalier, but there's many players that do enter the National Hockey League at 18. At Christmas time, when the coach decides he's not performing, then he goes down. That does a lot to the ego and just to the mind of that player. And I think they'd be better off just going to the CHL right away.
Draft them, leave them there, give them some experience. And now Tampa Bay is what? 1 win?
Yes.
1 tie? You know what that's going to do to an 18-year-old if that continues? He's going to lose his confidence. He's going to get run over. I mean, trust me, he's going to get run over. They're going to put the squeeze on him. And I just don't think it's fair to him or it's fair to junior hockey.
Another good example, of course, Thornton with Boston last
Exactly.
year as well. Same scenario.
They finally admitted they made a mistake. They admitted this year, Harry Sinden admitted that he should have spent the whole year in the junior league. He lost the whole year in Boston, and they couldn't understand. Well, you might be physically able. You may have 210 pound body, and you might be strong, but your mind is not as physical as your body. And it's your mind that you have to get going with the body. It's like a great skater, and I'll bring Eddie Shack into this. Shack was $1 million pair of legs, but it took him quite a long time to get the head to work with the legs. And that's what happens to a lot of these kids, you see.
For sure. And of course, we mentioned those examples in the junior system, but we definitely have a great system here with the CHL. It's a lot of Canadian kids seem to be going toward the university trend as well, and getting their schooling and their degrees at big colleges. And we've seen from Cape Breton, quite a few have gone down that way. Mackie McLeod has gone down to Babson College. We've had many others go down that route as well. Is that something that you think is an advantage to players here now, is that they do have the choice if they want to get their degree or go to play junior hockey?
Well, I think education is number one. I didn't get a university degree, but education, in my opinion, is number one. My son John got educated, played with the university here, played junior hockey out west. I had Bruce Campbell play for me at the college, another good competitor and a great guy and a coachable guy. And he got his education, which is helping him today with the Eagles. And you can go all the way down the list. I don't say that's the answer for everybody. We're all not college material. But if you have enough smarts, Craig Fergus is another guy, Yale University, and another graduate. But he played his AAA, and he played his junior hockey, and he paid his dues, and he ended up playing in Fredericton. You can do it if you want. Some of us are not cut out to do it. And I think as far as the education goes, it's great. But if you're going to be in the juniors like my son John was, and I only use him for one reason only, he was dedicated enough when he played out west as a 15-year-old for Jerry James in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, then as a 16-year-old in Nanaimo, and then got drafted by Brian Kilray in Ottawa. He continued his education. he had his books on the bus. So I know it's my son, and yes, I am patting him on the back, but that's what these young hockey players have to do who do not choose to go the educational route. They should make it a point to take the time to get their work done, and they're going to benefit. Well, like I said, I just mentioned it. Bruce Campbell is a prime example. At a very old age, for as far as university was concerned, he got his degree at the University College of Cape Breton. My son ended up getting his in St. FX. What better example can you use, and what better example for a guy like Bruce coaching these young hockey players to say, hey, listen, boys, this is how you do it. John was 28, and I just forget, I know Bruce was in his 30s.
For sure.
But what a credit to him.
For sure.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the Quebec Aces, and I guess you're still a record holder there, as the
Yeah.
longest running Quebec Ace, I guess. Let's talk about your days back in Quebec.
Well, we had a lot of good teams, and we had a lot of bad teams in Quebec. I spent 7 years there. There's nobody ever that's played 7 consecutive years in Quebec City. I'm the longest playing member ever. And they rewarded me for that back in 1992. They had me go to Quebec, the 75th anniversary of the National Hockey League, to represent the Quebec Aces. I was captain there also a couple of years. And a beautiful city. I learned to speak French between Chicoutimi and Quebec and Three Rivers. The nicest people I ever met in my life was in Quebec. I really enjoyed them, and they treated me well. And I think the main reason they treated me well is that I used to go on French television, spoke what I knew, and then I'd kick into English. And I remember a night we were coming out of the arena, and this guy is going 100 miles an hour. And that's the only thing I found difficult in Quebec, was they speak much quicker than we do. And he's going, and I'm picking up bits and pieces and everything else. And then finally, I'm speaking French to him, and I'm speaking what I know. I'm just great at speaking. He lance, he frappe the poteau, or joue mal le soir, which means play bad, and I'm going to joue demain soir, Rochester, and playing tomorrow night in Rochester. And anyway, I was going everything I knew, and I tried to cut him off because I wanted to speak what I knew, because if I had to pick up, I might get in trouble. Before I got to the main door of the buildings, he was speaking English. And from that point of the year on, he always spoke English to me, and I spoke French. So we have to put in an effort, and I think it's, and the same as these, I felt for these young French players on the Eagles this year. I really felt for them, and I said, I'm hoping that maybe somebody would ask me to say, well, John, you learned to speak French in Quebec. How did you do it? You know, and I went the same route, and I could feel for these kids coming in here, a lot of them that couldn't speak any English. But it's going to be a valuable asset to them, and they should carry their heads high, and they should practice, and they should do whatever they can to learn, because today we need 2 languages.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I wish I only knew more. All I can say is I love ice cream. J'aime crème glacée. That's
Crème
about,
glacée, yeah.
that's my extent
I don't
of
want to
French.
tell you the first words I learned
No, I can well
in
imagine.
French, and you know, bump into a cab driver, and he'll tell you what you want to do to learn to speak French.
No doubt about it.
The coach wasn't too pleasant over what I told him.
John, of course, the big break in the NHL came with the Rangers, and you played there for quite some time. Obviously, you have to have some great memories about breaking into the NHL and playing with some legends.
Well, yeah, I was very fortunate. I played with guys like Andy Bathgate and Bill Gadsby and Jack Evans, who's dead today, and Larry Cahan, another guy that's passed away. Gump Worsley was our goaltender for 4 years.
Oh, Gumper.
And Andy Hedberton, the Iron Man, played on left wing with guys like Dean Prentice and Camille Henry, who's another guy that passed away. And playing in the Big Apple in New York, I mean, you were in awe of it. I mean, it took you a while to settle in. But it was $1 million education for me. And playing in New York with 6 teams at that time. It was dog eat dog. You played each team 7 times. And it was very, very difficult because you played against the same guys, and not like it is today. You might see Gretzky, for example, maybe once or twice for the whole year, so you don't get an opportunity really to study his moves. And in those days, and then if these young Eagles are watching, we had to go and watch the other teams play at every opportunity. we had our meetings. You know what our meeting was? If we're playing the Boston Bruins tonight, they wanted to know, what did Don McKinney, what's his moves? What does Leo Lubin like to do? What does Fernie Flaman like to do? What does Don Simmons? What kind of a goaltender is he? We were quizzed on the other team as defensemen, and we had to know whether he came inside and back outside. So we were students of the game. And I think that's one big difference today. It's so wide open, and they don't really know where anybody is going, in my opinion, on a lot of cases.
And of course, technology's come a long way too, John.
Oh,
You didn't have
definitely.
the advantage of the videotape back then to study the game
Well,
tapes.
everything, that's right. Everything is videotaped now, and I think the first time I had any idea about videotape was when I was in Seattle. I played in Seattle in the Western League for 4 years, and when we were in Seattle, Bill McFarland used to bring out the videotapes, and Chuck Holmes, and we started watching the videotapes. It answered a lot of questions. Many a night you said, I had them. I was there. I wasn't out of position. Click,
Yes, you
down
were.
goes the videotape. Well, some nights I was right, but there was other nights I wasn't.
For sure.
Yeah.
WHA, and we can see you brought some jerseys in for us. This one here, actually, the first WHA All-Star game?
Yes, that was the first year of the league, and I made the first All-Star game ever, and it was played in Quebec City, January the 3rd, 1973, in Quebec. We had a sellout crowd, and I always remember that night. We had guys, Jerry Cheevers, Ricky Lay, who's behind the bench and for the Toronto Maple Leafs now with Pat Quinn, and J.C. Trombley, who's passed away, since passed away. And then we had an all-star cast, and Bill Hunter was the big guy. He was the guy that organized the WHA, him and Dennis Murphy. But what really rings the bell with that is I was that excited that at the age of 38, now I'm really giving my age, 38, 39.
How long ago was that?
Right, making the WHA the first All-Star game and in Quebec City. But we all said that, listen, we're going to really put on a show, the Cleveland Crusaders. And what we did, we all went out and we rented tuxes. Now, we were supposed to be making a lot of money. I wouldn't want to compare it to this day and age about how much money we really made. But we all went out and we rented tuxes. And Jerry Cheevers, being the campaigner that he is, he had a tux on, and we all had tuxes on. And then they had Jerry come up to the podium, and when we looked, lo and behold, Cheevers had running shoes on with the tux.
Oh, my.
And that stood out like you wouldn't believe. Normie Ferguson, I'm pretty sure Normie was in there that year. And the reason I have the sweater, in those days you couldn't get a sweater. You just couldn't take a sweater for the sake of taking it because you were gone, the miners. But Jack Kelly, I don't know if you remember that name, he was involved with the Adirondack Red Wings. He's running an arena somewhere in the United States now. A few boys were talking, had hello from him to me, and he was our coach. He had coached the New England Whalers. And he said, okay, boys, he said, if we win, you get $300. Back to money again, right? You get $300. And the guys were moaning and groaning, $300 to win. What do you get if you lose? Nothing, right? You get nothing if you lose. So I think it was Paul Smear that says, well, look, boys, he said, if we win this game, what about giving us our sweaters? Can we have our sweaters? Because they were supposed to be collected at the end of the game. So the other team didn't realize what we were getting, and they couldn't understand why we were so hungry coming out and playing the first, second, and third period. And we ended up with we won the game. We got a check for $300. By the time they took tax off, there wasn't much left. And then they gave us the sweaters, and that was the first All-Star game ever in the World Hockey, WHA.
Right.
Yep.
Let's talk about the WHA, John. Of course, it's long gone now, but many memories remain.
Yep.
And I know the NHL were quite fearsome at the time for this competitor league that's coming in and offering money. And that's really where the money started to change hands from the owners to the players. Was that what you think got the NHL going and the NHL owners to say, well, we're going to have to pay these guys?
Positively. And I'll give you an example. When I was coaching Cleveland in the World Hockey in '74, I broke my leg the year before, so I ended up coaching the following year. Started in Jacksonville and came back to Cleveland. And we had a guy, well, we already had Jerry Cheevers signed, 200,000.
That's huge for that day.
Yeah, it's huge for that day. And then we had John Rattel, and we had Vic Hatfield, and Rod Gilbert, who were all supposed to come over for $200,000 each and leave the Rangers. And Emile the Cat Francis was the general manager. And when he heard that he was going to lose his top line and they were going to come over and join Cheevers, I mean, I would have had a powerhouse with those three guys. The Rangers not only matched, but raised the salaries above the $200,000 for all three of those players. And what a lot of people forget too, a lot of people don't remember, is Wayne Gretzky is an 18-year-old, wasn't playing junior. He was playing in the World Hockey for, I believe, Cincinnati or Indianapolis. And his left winger at the time who was there to protect him was Kevin Morrison from Sydney here.
Of course.
Kevin played in Colorado. And Kevin, in the very first goal that Gretzky ever scored, the first guy he got over to pat on the back was Kevin Morrison.
Wow.
And we introduced a lot of the kids at Kevin's hockey school this past summer and told them about that, and they were pretty excited over it. But yeah, I'd say the WHA have really was a starter. I mean, my contract was tripled. And I mean, I fought, and I was the holdout in Seattle after winning the MVP of the league, only the third defenseman in the history of the league ever to be named most valuable player. I was a top scorer on my team. I won the Hal Laco Cup a couple of times. And I believe I wanted a $1,500 raise. And they weren't apt to give it to me. So here I was in Seattle from Sydney, Nova Scotia. So I called her bluff, and I packed my bags, and I went back to Sydney. And I sat for a while, and when nothing was happening, I called the late Clarence Campbell. And he said to me, well, John, he said, why do you feel you deserve more money? And I said, well, I gave him my records. I told him what I did the year before. I said, I'm a good liver. I said, I'm not a carouser. I said, I eat, sleep, drink the game. They don't have to go looking for me. And and that's another important thing for the young hockey players today is, you know, I wasn't built with a lot of talent, but I earned the right to gain that ability because of the way I lived, and people gave me the opportunity to prove myself. So anyway, Clarence Campbell was the guy who ended up, I can tell you now, signing me. He was the guy that called Seattle. He said, this is unfair. This boy is entitled to $1,500 increase. And when I got there, and they finally agreed to my $1,500 raise, they said to me, well, we're going to have to dock you for the time you're off. I said, no, hold it right there. Hold it. I said, you call Clarence Campbell. That's all I had to say. No, they did not dock me. They gave me the full raise.
Enough said. Right
Enough
on.
said.
Now, I want to talk about this before we go here, but you're not starting to dress like Mr. T. This is actually an unbelievable piece of memorabilia. This was given to you by the legendary, now late, Frank Sinatra.
Exactly right. Opening night in Cleveland, the Crusaders, October the 27th or 4th, I'm not sure what's on. I think it was October the 27th. Frank Sinatra.
26th.
26th, is it? Okay.
There you go.
Give or take, right? Compromise. Opening night in Cleveland, the new Cleveland Coliseum. It was presented to me personally by Frank Sinatra.
So you actually shook his hand.
I actually shook his hand
Wow.
and listened to him sing that night, a night that I'll never forget as long as I live.
No doubt.
Yep.
That's something else.
Yep.
John, it's hard to believe we're coming up on the end of the program, but before we let you go, I just want to ask you, because you've studied the game since you were a youngster, and you've always been actively involved, whether it be with the Screaming Eagles or the high school teams or the junior B or whatever teams you've been involved at the local level. I want to talk about hockey compared to back when you played and compared to now. Obviously, the leagues is watered down now with so many expansion teams right now. But a lot of people make the argument that perhaps those players, well, if Gretzky played back then, he'd be nothing like he is now. And, of course, the same things come. Well, if Gordie Howe played now, he wouldn't do half the things he did. What was the league like back then compared to now?
Well, let's speak about the original 6. And like I mentioned earlier, we played 7 games on the road and 7 games at home, each team. We studied each guy more. We had to. That was our job. It was much more difficult. If the 2 defensemen stood up on the blue line and there was a wide pass made, that winger better be there to get him, or let you know that he wasn't going to be there, so you'd back off. I think it was tougher in that sense. But as far as the speed goes, I think the kids are bigger today. I think they're faster. I think the conditioning we learned from the Russians have made them better conditioned athletes. And it seems to be, it's exciting. It's very exciting. But as an ex-pro who's played in the original 6, who played when we expanded from 6 teams to 12 teams, I think that's what happened to my hair, is I get pulling my hair out when nobody picks that wing up, when they don't follow the guy back into the end zone, when the 2 defensemen are like 2 balky horses and don't want to stand up on the blue line and have the wingers come back deep behind the defenseman. That's the part of the game that I don't understand. I still feel that we can still play that system, but it's going to take a lot more work. And the National Hockey League, once again, is responsible for the way we're playing today. They sign contracts according to money. They sign contracts according to how many goals and how many assists. I've seen teams come in here to junior leagues. Every time the puck was in the net, maybe you should watch it the next time you're going. They all want these points. They all want to get up there. They want to be recognized through the point system. And Central Scouting does that. And I think we can't really blame the kids. But I'd say with the size, I don't think they play with bigger hearts than we did. I think we had better attitudes. And I think the money is ruining the attitudes a lot today.
Well said.
And getting drafted is ruining some of these kids. Some of these kids come out that get drafted, they come out with these big heads. Well, I'll tell you what. When I was drafted by the Rangers, and I was going to that Ranger training camp, I not only ate everything that moved, or tried to go over everything that moved, and if I couldn't go around it, I went through it. And you carried that out in your behavior off the ice. You carried it out when you had a curfew, you went to bed. And I think a lot of these young hockey players today are reading their own press, and they're going around with swell heads. And if they are, or if they don't have a good attitude in the dressing room, or on the bus, or wherever they go on the road, they're in for a rude awakening, because they're not going to make it. You cannot play this game unless you have a good attitude. And you cannot play this game if you're going to be a clubhouse lawyer. And you must be a team man from every sense of the word, whether it was original 6, whether it was the 12 teams, whether it's present. And if those young hockey players out there are listening, I wish they would. Just take stock of themselves. You have to be a team guy, and we cannot afford to have clubhouse lawyers.
Right on. John, we're out of time. I want to say thank you so much.
Thank you, Jack.
It's always a pleasure to just sit down and shoot the breeze with you. And hopefully this year we can do a couple more Screaming Eagles games, because they're always a blast too.
I'd love to.
All right. Thank you again for watching a legend. It's guys like this that paved the road for the Wayne Gretzkys and the Pavel Bure's and all the superstars that you watch today. And thank you for watching Sports Talk. And we're going to be back at you next week. Same time, same place. Thanks again. Enjoy your sports this week.